It's not absolute vodka, it's absolute identity.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to start to talk to this very nice subject which was suggested by José. And first of all, I have to thank José because we were a little bit in a hurry putting everything together to the session, and then he suggested the title, which is actually our marketing claim, Absolute Identity, which is a good marketing claim, but for this presentation here, I have insisted to add a question mark. So please, it's Absolute Identity question mark. And I want only to spend one slide on our company. It's a small company from Switzerland. We are more than 150 years old, and we have 17 years experience with polycarbonate documents, and I want to highlight the one on the very right. That's the Estonian EID, which was before probably forgotten in the list of EID documents. That's the document which was introduced in 2003, which has a very high acceptance rate with the citizens and also usage rate, and it was also the first document where a voting over the internet has been performed. So a very interesting country far up north. And if you look for the chip, this is the second generation card where they have put the chip on the backside, so you cannot see it. So I would like to give you a quick introduction. Oh, sorry for that. A quick introduction, then look at some security threats, and then add a 4 pillars model, so to speak, to fight these threats, talk about secure identity management, and then have a few words at the end, discussion and outlook. So I think we all agree on that identification is key. Now, what is very interesting to think what actually is going on. So identity documents, they have optical information about the document holder as well as same data or additional data on the chip. Now what we do, we do a verification of the identity document and the holder information, and this generally serves as a proof of the holder's identity. And well, the question is, if I have checked the document, is this 100% proof of the document holder's identity? Probably not. And there's probably some other points I would like to address, what security threats are out there, and how to determine a security level. And I probably do not focus here, as it was before, on the electronic part, as you will see. And I would like to spread a little bit the topic. So the types of security threats, I go very quickly through it, and they are valid, for optical as well as, data on chip. And this is actually from the AMVA, the AMVA, the American Automotive and Vehicle Association, if I get it right. So they count 4 security threats, counterfeit or simulation, when you do an unauthorized copy or reproduction of a genuine security document by whatever means, or a counterfeit from cannibalized card. So if you take a card apart, we have seen a very nice document there which you can take apart, and do things like this, but you can also do it with passports, or if you're manage to split the card, you can also do an attack on a card and somehow on the identity. Then you can do alteration of cards, deletion, modification, let's take an example of a student card, then at that time, it's probably interesting to add some years to the age, to be older, to get access to some services like alcohol, so you'd start to change data, or substitution of a photo which is somehow linked to the thread above in order to have an imposter's photo on a legal document, a valid document. Now what I claim here is that the secure solution is based on the 4 pillars which I'm going to introduce. So we have the physical security. On this point I probably would disagree on when we only have an EID in a USB stick as identity document. So it's important to safeguard the optical information and protect from manipulation. We have the logical security, so to protect the data on the chip. We have the document security, that you cannot attack the document, take out parts of a passport, split the document, or whatever. And very importantly is the process security, so the entire process from production, issuing, and what I've forgotten to add here also, when verifying the document. There are also a lot of process issues resolved to this. If you just look at the green lamp, when you put the passport, it's green, and you say passed, and you don't look even at the face of the applicant, that's probably a very bad example of what can go or could go wrong. So what I show here, I'm not going to go into all the details here, I'm just dropping here the buzzwords to give a picture what has been done on all the 4 pillars to basically draw a picture from the left, physical security, as we know, laser engraving, tactile elements, as all these moving elements like MLI, UV prints, holograms, and so on and so on. And then the logical elements, the on-chip elements, where we have heard a lot in the recent days, starting with passive authentication up to PACE or SAC. And then also for document, as I mentioned before, protect, for example, the data page of a passport. Make sure you cannot split the card body. Do some printed or perforated document numbering system. This is what I would count to this pillar. And then the process security. So secure production, transportation, and also link to the PKD information, for example, check the document certificates, and last but not least, have a good link to the breeder documents. So, and this is what I personally believe is very important, that we have a combination of security element, that we cannot rely on a single element or a single pillar, and if we do so, we achieve the goal to have a secure, sound identification element, be it a driving license, identity card, passport, or whatever. And just one point I'd like to highlight. There are situations where you do not have access to the chip, you don't have a reader, the battery is empty, we heard yesterday, chip is broken, the document is still valid by the rules of ICAO. So you need physical elements in order to check the document. You may not be able to check the chip, but you have to check and can check the document. Another point where I would like to push is close the weakest link. That's actually always wherever the case, but in looking at documents, if you know where there is the weakest link, pay special attention. And I would like to refer here to the process element, breeder documents. I think it's safe to say that they are considered as a weak, or probably the weakest link. I just refer here to the new technology working group of ICAO, which calls for a global focus to look at the weaknesses, or to improve on the weaknesses on breeder documents and civil registries. I have forgotten the number of birth certificates which type of birth certificates which exists in the US, but I think it's more than 10,000, something like this. Maybe someone in this room has the exact number. I have forgotten about it. So it's really then very difficult to know and to check all this, and the question is, how secure are they? And if you have such a certificate, you can build up, and at the end of the day, you end up with a very nice passport with your identity on it. So the last slide, discussion and outlook. What comes next? I don't have a clear answer of what comes next. I cannot predict the future. What I claim is, it's always a race, There is a new threat or a very clever fraudster or whatever, and then there's a new security mechanism, and this is just something where we have kind of race, be it on the physical side or on the cyberspace, on the data on the chip, stronger cryptography or whatever. So this will go in cycles, and we have to pay attention that we are one step ahead. And I think in this sense, it's really a challenge. That's also part of the topic of this afternoon, what are the challenges? I think the challenge is, if you look at this triangle, that we have security, convenience for the officers as well as for the citizens, and speed, when passing through a border or checking a e-gate or a conventional passport or a borderline, that we have a good balance between these three items. Thank you very much for your attention.
Delegates, any question? Are there questions? Okay, there is one.
Wait. Oh, just, I don't want to make always a question, but are you thinking to improve the access to e-services, through the standard smart card with using the iPhone or iPad? So more or less is the same question.
So the question is, whether, or your doubt is that with a smart card it's difficult to improve on e-governance, since, the access to the service is difficult. You would like to have something through the mobile, or you see a problem with the reader or whatever?
As the user, rightly, Miranda said that actually iPad and iPhone are always more and more used for the moment. Okay, the future we don't know. If it would be a barrier, this one, using smart cards, EID, like simple smart cards, standard smart cards.
I mean, one very interesting point would be, it's now a little bit visionary, if all the phones have NFC enabled, and if the communication works with a contactless smart card, then everyone carries a reader with it, and you just have to tip next to your phone or whatever, and your identity, which is printed, accesses this service. So if you refer to the smart card reader infrastructure and the middleware and so on, I think there are options, or there are possibilities that the future looks very different.
Right. I thought we are speaking about NFC probably for more than 5 years, but still is not here.
Yeah, well, we don't
know. Thank you.
There's another question. Please.
Hi, my name is Mohan. I've been waiting for one question. I thought nobody asked so far. So I thought I'd ask that question. Most of the times we're talking about the security till production and issuance of the card. The actual threats are when the card is issued and then it is put to a lot of use. Example, if you have to integrate EID with various either e-services or for improving the internal efficiency and effectiveness for the enterprise. and access management applications. The threats are far too many. For example, simple DLL booking will enable you to change the response of the car. What kind of measures that you think one should take to ensure that while in use after the issuance of the EID, it's safe and effective?
I'm not sure if I understood the question right. So you see the main threat when the document is, once the document is issued and in circulation, what is the threat?
The threat is that, say for example, EID in the smart card,
Yep.
for the EID to be integrated with various applications, whether it is online services or any other application, you need interfacing software, typically called a toolkit or SDK, for interfacing. Simple Windows DLL booking, there's a method called, technical method called DLL booking. Most of the antivirus software use that method to redirect the traffic to specific and try to destroy your setup. That's quite possible because none of the toolkits, as far as I know, are either CCP certified or no certifications for the toolkits. Therefore, there are bound to be threats, and I have seen the threats. I have simulated simple booking. Will redirect your authentication response. Let's say, for example, even match on the card of biometrics, you can change the response from yes to no to yes. So when it is put to use, there are a lot of
Well, I think I'm probably not the best person to answer it. I would like to have Dennis Kugler here, who gave yesterday a presentation where he has basically proven to the audience how safe, the German EID card is, where you even, the reader checks, or no, the card checks whether the reader is allowed, to basically have communication in case there is a legally binding signature with that card, and that, it is certified and tested, and the keyboard is integrated so that no one can sneak the password and things, or the PIN, things like this. So I think there are ways to build it such that you, there's some effort related to it, that you cannot do it. It probably depends for what kind of authentication or what kind of application you are thinking of. If you have, in quotes, a simple application, there's probably also a simpler way of doing misuse. It's always the balance, Does this at least partly answer your question?
Yes, let's hope that we'll get better answers.
Okay, other questions? Well, if there are not other questions, I thank you, Dr. Faber, and we will go to our next and last speaker, Mr. Christian Wagner from GND. Mr. Christian Wagner will talk about the advantage of using electronic ID.
So, good evening. Meanwhile, my name is Christian Wagner from Giesecke and Devrient, and welcome heartily to the last speech of this conference. So, I appreciate very heartily that you are so patient to stay with us until the very end of the session. And maybe I also can go a little bit onto your question with this presentation here, because now we are back again more on the electronical side of the chip and not touching so much the physical card body The speech is about the importance of making several discussions for establishing an EID concept which is sound and comprehensive in the very beginning of a project phase. And I mean, when I reflect these 2 days, obviously it's not quite easy to implement a sound and a comprehensive EID concept, because you have a lot of questions about legislation, about your laws, about your European laws also, which are applicable. You have a lot of legal entities to be considered, and also you have a lot of technical components in this game to be considered. So obviously it's a complex matter.